Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. And today, we are going to talk about my first ever book tag that I came up with, and I have called it the inner reader in all of us. And it is kind of a walk through all phases of reading. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The first question is, what book intimidates you the most? Have you read it, or do you plan to? For me, that is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. And why can't I say his name? I have not read it. There is something about Russian literature that just baffles me. I easily could have put Anna Karenina here as well. I don't know what that barrier is. I read War and Peace. I was a teenager when I read War and Peace. I loved it. Had no trouble. Something happened in college. I don't know what. But ever since then, I cannot pick up Russian literature. And I very much want to pick this one up. And yet, I, whom very rarely am intimidated by books, freely admit to being intimidated by this. We shall see. I know it is beloved. I don't know. I don't know if I will actually ever pick it up. So. Okay. Have the handy dandy question list. Question number 2. Perfect weekend. You have no responsibilities and no guilt is involved. What book or series do you curl up with and why? This can be a reread. This can be something that is sitting on your shelf just begging to be read. And I would naturally gravitate to, just binge reading cozy mysteries. But I actually think I'm going to choose something a little bit different for this question. So I know I would choose the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, finished by Brandon Sanderson. I own all the books. I, in fact, also own the Wheel of Time Companion. This is, in essence, the encyclopedia for the Wheel of Time. Characters, places, the whole 9 yards to tie it all together. And I also own a nonfiction for the Wheel of Time. That is The Origins of Wheel of Time by Michael Livingston. I haven't even shown this in a book haul yet. It's all sitting there waiting for me. I just haven't had the time to sit down and devote to the series. I have read books 1 through 4. I don't remember anything about them, so I will probably start again and annotate as I go. But yeah, if I had a perfect weekend, no guilt involved, no obligations, no nothing, at this point I would probably sit down and tackle the Wheel of Time and see how far I could get in a weekend and just continue down that path, because it is something I want to read sooner rather than later. It's a matter of getting there, if that makes sense. So, question number 3. From the year you were born, what books have you read that were published that year, and did you enjoy them? Are there any books from that year which have sparked your interest to search out and read? So I was born in 1968. And a quick search this morning when I was formulating questions, a lot of the books fiction books that were published that year are all war related, unsurprisingly. There is one published that I have read from 1968. For me, it is contained in this compendium. That is The Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. I have read it. Did not enjoy it. I have DNF'd the entire Earthsea saga by Le Guin. I don't understand the hype. I don't understand the everybody should read this series nonsense that goes with that. I did find a book that interests me while I was doing the research for this question this morning, and that is MASH. I have forgotten who it's written by. Here's the cover. I watched that series growing up with my parents. I didn't know it was based on a book, and now I want to read the book. It immediately caught my attention. I remember growing up watching that series, with my parents. I remember my parents' emotional reaction when the series ended. We all watched it together as a family. So I think I would enjoy the book. So we will see if I can find a copy of it. And 4. What is your favorite book so far this year and your most anticipated to read before the end of the year? So my favorite book of the year so far is Miss Graham's Cold War Cookbook by Celia Reese. I have talked about this book a lot recently. It is set in post-World War II Europe, and it is a gut-wrenchingly difficult book to read, but one I think everybody should read and absorb. There are lessons for society today contained within the pages of this work of fiction. My most anticipated read for the remainder of the year that is not yet released is The Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. It is book 5 of the Stormlight Archive series and the concluding arc for phase 1 of the Stormlight Archive. I am currently rereading The Way of Kings, which is the first book in the Stormlight Archive. The first time I read the first 3 books in the series, I read them on Kindle and did not understand how interconnected the books were. I now understand that. I really wish that Sanderson would come out with an encyclopedia of the Cosmere that interconnects everything, because it is very, very necessary, and B, having to pause and go figure something out on the web is distracting. But I am highly looking forward to Wind and Truth at the end of the year. Book 4 of the series, which is Rhythm of War, is a Dave 24 and 24 pick, and it will all be ready and waiting for my pre-order of book 5, which comes out on December 6th. So, yeah, that is the most anticipated for the rest of the year. Question 5. What author do you wish would have a finished manuscript discovered, authenticated, mind you? Or what author do you dream about time traveling to gift the world with just one more book? There are a lot of very easy answers for this question. Jane Austen, William Shakespeare, any of the Brontes, Charles Dickens. There is a wide breadth of authors you could choose for this. And I think, personally, I am going to choose, it's going to be unexpected, John Donne. He wrote my favorite piece of poetry in the universe. And I am not generally a great lover of poetry. It's not my personal go-to comfort read. However, anytime I'm in the mood for poetry, I pick up his poetry and it speaks to me. And if I could just have one more collection of his imagery and his emotions and his words, my soul would be just pleased as punch. So I'm going to choose John Donne. Question number 6. What is the fiction book you recommend the most often and why? And regular reader or watchers of this channel are not going to be surprised when I tell you it is In Pieces by Rhonda Ortiz. This is the first book in the Molly Chase series. It is historical fiction, and it is masterfully written historical fiction. As you know, I read a lot of historical fiction. I have always read a lot of historical fiction. There are very good historical fiction authors out there. There are mediocre historical fiction authors out there. There are big name historical fiction authors. But what Rhonda has done, she has crafted a world that is relatable, believable, authentic to the time period. It is historically accurate. She has, a linguistic database is, that makes sure that her current modern day linguistic choice is actually appropriate for the time period while still writing incredibly readable, relatable fiction. And it takes time and skill and love for an author to do that. And she has crafted a world that is just perfection. I do not have another word for it other than perfection. Question 7. We have all read books that are super popular and just didn't work for us. Which books didn't work for you and why? Unsurprisingly, Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I will link my review down below. This book is just trash. I do not understand the immense love this series gets. I don't understand why people think Jamie and Claire are this great romantic couple. I understand nothing about the hype of this book, and you cannot convince me otherwise. This book is just horrible. It's horrible on every level. It is poorly written. It is poorly plotted. It is incredibly unlikable characters. It is got disgusting content. There is nothing about this book that works for me. I do not understand why anybody likes it, and I cannot fathom how there is a 10th book on its way. Just, ugh. I don't get it, and I will never get it. So, Outlander. Question number 8. What nonfiction book or books most intrigues you that you don't yet own? I have 2. The first one is, cover is right here, Lord of the Rings and the Catholic Faith. It is, Tolkien was a Catholic. He was a very strong and firm believer. He had an enormous impact on those around him. C.S. Lewis converted to Catholicism because of Tolkien's faith and their discussions and the example he lived. And so I am fascinated by this book, and I cannot wait to dive into it. And my second choice, released earlier this year, it is called Shakespeare's Sisters by Romea, author name right here. And this talks about women writers in the Elizabethan era. I cannot wait to dive into this book. I really, really cannot. It is fascinating. It turns the Virginia Woolf theory that women were too burdened by childbirth and duties and housework and raising children, all those other things, to have any impact on literature, and it turns that upside down. So I am very much looking forward to this nonfiction book. And I don't read a lot of nonfiction, so the fact that I have two choices surprised even me. Question number 9. This or that is a very popular Instagram story choice. So rather than play this or that, describe your perfect reading setup. My perfect reading setup. I have an indoor and an outdoor version. So the outdoor version first. It's about 75 degrees. It's sunny. There aren't too many, bugs in the air. It's not allergy season. My garden is in full bloom. And I just have the day to spend outside in the sun with my dogs and my husband, relaxing and curled up with a good book and just enjoy the day. We could be at home, we could be in the RV at a campground, we could be, in the RV on the beach or at a lake. It doesn't matter. I just give me my dogs and my husband and some sunshine, and I'm good. That is always reading perfection for me. My other choice for indoor is curled up on the sofa. I'm comfortable. The dogs are comfortable. And it's fireplace is going. The house is nice and warm. I'm not having to, dress like Nanook because my husband keeps the house much colder than I would like. And I can just spend the day, sipping, a good mocha and read while, rain beats down on the roof and the fireplace roars and my toes are warm and everybody's happy. And that is just reading perfection for me. Either of those two scenarios, and I am good to go. I don't need the stereo blaring or, playing in the background. I don't need a lot of accoutrements. Just give me a book, give me my dogs and my husband, and I'm good. I'm not a complicated reader. I'm not a complicated person in general. Just give me a good book, give me my husband, give me my dogs. I'm generally very happy. All right. Last question. Vacation time, and somehow your luggage has space for the books you want to read this year on vacation. What are these magical, weightless books, and why? Oh, if only books were magical and weightless. I specifically didn't include Kindle in my choices because I tend to prefer physically holding a book, especially on vacation. I don't have to worry about, can I read the book in bright sunlight? Do I need to change, settings because it's shady? All of that stuff. Just give me a physical book. And so I chose 5 physical books that are all chunkers. As you know, I prefer to read a big, thick book anyway. So, and I don't know that I will get to any of these just here. I would like to, so we shall see. First up is Her Heart for a Compass by the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson. I very much want to read this book, and I haven't yet. It is historical fiction. There's a follow-up book to it. I haven't read anything by her that is not from her children's books. So I want to see how she writes adult books. I love the cover. I think this cover is stunning. So yes, this is definitely one I would pack if books were magically weightless and I had room in my luggage. The next up is The Lady Brewer of London by Karen Brooks. Again, another big thick book, another redhead on the cover, another one I very much want to read. This one is over 800 pages. Doesn't intimidate me at all. I just want to sit down and have time to read it. I want to sit down and have time to read it. It takes place in a fascinating portion of history. This is 1405 in London. I need to be able to carve time out at some point, or I'm just going to make 2025 the year of mood reading and forego all the nonsense and just mood read all of 2025. So we shall see. The next book I have started, but I will have to restart it. I haven't picked this up since 2021, and I need to A, restart it, but B, I need to get the rest of the books in the series. And that is The Curse of the Mistwaith by Janie Wirtz. This is fantasy. It is nice big chunker. And I love her writing, but this is a book where I need time and relative peace to just absorb and sit down and read slowly and methodically and annotate as I go. So this is definitely one of those take on a vacation books, sit on the beach and do nothing and just read, or sit by the lake and do nothing and read, or curl up in the middle of winter with the fire going, rain pouring, and just have that time to read. So there's that one. And the amazing thing about all 5 of these books, I haven't read any of these authors. Yes, I've started Janie Wirtz, but I haven't read her to completion. Next up is The Shadow Queen by Anne O'Brien. Historical fiction. I want to read this very much. You know, it's... How many pages is this one? Let's see. Oh, it's not even that bad. It's only 539. It is one of those books I want to read. This is Joan of Kent. I have a couple of Joan of Kent books sitting in my house that I want to read. This is the only one I pulled. And this one is... Did they put a year in here? Let's see. 1340. So even earlier. Historical fiction. Yeah. Okay, last choice is The Weight of Ink by Rachel Kadesh. This is Jewish historical fiction. It's also dual timeline, so there's a historical and a contemporary. And I am so intrigued by this book, and I very much want to read it. It's less than 600 pages, so it's not even that long. I love the fact that it's, paperback and it still has deckled edges. I'll read you Here, I'll read you the inside flap. Set in the London of the 1660s and the early 2000s, The Weight of Ink is the interwoven tale of two women of remarkable intellect. Esther Valaquez, an immigrant from Amsterdam who is permitted to scribe for a blind rabbi just before plague hits the city, and Helen Watt, an ailing historian with a love of Jewish history. When Helen is summoned by a former student to view a cache of newly discovered 17th century Jewish documents, she enlists the help of Aaron Levi, an American graduate student as impatient as he is charming, and embarks on one last project, to determine the identity of the document scribe, the elusive elf. Electrifying and ambitious, The Weight of Ink is the story of women separated by centuries, and the choices and sacrifices they must make in order to reconcile the life of the heart and mind. This is so high on my list. Again, I don't know when I'm going to find time for it. Again, I might just have to make 2025 the year of mood reading. So, that is the Inner Reader in All of Us tag. I hope it provided a little insight into me. I hope you may be inspired to do the tag yourself. If you do, please let me know. I would love to watch any of your videos. Please leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.